He loved the sound of falling snow. It reminded him of things you don't get to choose. Lightning, a shooting star, rare moments that appear only when they want to. That night, it appeared when it wasn't supposed to. This recording was recovered after a sudden snowfall that was not listed in the forecast and temporarily cut off access to the surrounding area. He was not the hiking type, but when it snowed, something in him always gave in. He had no obligations the next day. It was late, either a Friday or a Saturday. He remembered feeling slightly hungover from the night before. What he remembered most clearly was checking the weather earlier that evening. It wasn't supposed to snow. He had been sitting in his room, reading, when the snow started abruptly, like someone had flipped a switch. At first, he didn't even notice, but by the time he looked out the window, there was already snow on the ground. A lot of it. He didn't think about it. He already knew what he wanted to do. He went for a walk. The trail he drove to was secluded. Not deep in the woods, but close enough. If he wanted to reach dense forest, it would have only taken a few more minutes. He stepped out of the car, stood there for a moment, and watched the snow fall. Then he started walking. He didn't have a plan. His only goal was to go far enough that the world felt quiet. After about 20 minutes, he stopped. And the moment he did, he heard something. Something that didn't belong there. It was a child's voice. He needed a few seconds to process what he'd heard. He told himself it wasn't real, that his mind was playing tricks on him. Then he heard it again. A little boy yelling, "Hi!" The word itself wasn't threatening, but hearing it there, alone, in the woods, was wrong. It was the last thing he expected to hear. What unsettled him even more was that he couldn't tell where the voice came from. It sounded like it came from everywhere. He turned around. There was no one. He looked again. Nothing. He decided to head back to his car. That's when the voice spoke again. "Up here, silly." He looked up. There was a boy sitting on a tree branch. He looked to be around 9 years old. The lowest branch was at least 20 feet off the ground. Seeing him should have calmed him down. And for a moment, the boy was smiling. Not a normal smile. Wide, stiff, like someone who hadn't learned how to smile yet. That's when he noticed the snow. There weren't any footprints around the tree, not a single one, which meant the boy had climbed up there before it started snowing. He had been sitting in that tree for at least 45 minutes, and that was ignoring the bigger question: how he got up there at all. The tree was straight, no branches low enough to climb. The boy waved. He asked how he got up there. The boy said it was a secret. Then he smiled again. He didn't know what to do. The boy didn't belong there, and he felt responsible. He considered trying to climb the tree. Before he could say anything, the boy stood up on the branch. He said, "Watch this." Then he leaned back and fell. He screamed. The boy hit the ground with a sound that didn't make sense. Too heavy. Too final. There was no way snow could have cushioned that fall. He ran toward him. Before he reached him, the boy sprang to his feet and ran, laughing. It was impossible. A fall like that should have killed him. He screamed again, not out of fear, out of disbelief. The boy disappeared deeper into the woods. Even with the snow glowing around them, it was dark enough for him to vanish. He doesn't know why he did it, but instead of turning back, he followed. He followed the footprints. He heard laughing again. Not laughing, cackling. It sounded playful, like a game. As he passed a tree, something grabbed him from behind. He fell. The boy was on top of him, clawing at his neck. He felt blood. He screamed and grabbed blindly. The boy screamed too. His fingernails tore into his skin. He thought he was going to lose his eyes. With everything he had, he threw the boy off him. The boy hit the ground, stood up immediately, and ran deeper into the woods, still laughing. This time, he didn't follow. If not for the blood on his hands, he might have stood there forever. The cuts didn't feel deep, but there was too much blood. He wrapped his hat around his neck. His hands were shaking. He was panicking. The next 20 minutes were a blur. The next clear memory was the inside of an ambulance. Later, the police told him something. They followed the footprints. They only found one set. His. Snow makes everything quieter. It hides movement. It softens distance. And sometimes, it hides things that shouldn't disappear. This recording was recovered after a severe winter storm that rendered local roads impassable for several hours. He was 19. It was winter break, and he had the house to himself for almost 2 weeks. During the second week, the storm hit. Forecasts had warned about it. They didn't exaggerate. By the time he woke up that Saturday, nearly a foot of snow covered the ground. It was still falling hard. Plows couldn't keep up. By late afternoon, the roads were completely blocked. His neighborhood wasn't typical. Houses were spaced far apart. Trees filled the gaps between them. In summer, it felt open. In winter, it felt isolated. That night, with no cars on the road and snow swallowing every sound, it felt abandoned. By 6 p.m, he was painfully bored. The internet had gone out overnight. No games, no distractions. He kept thinking about someone he knew nearby. They had been together the day before. The idea came suddenly. He thought it was funny. He would walk over and surprise him. The roads were impossible to drive. On foot, it seemed manageable. A little over a mile. He had walked farther than that before. Looking back, it was a stupid idea. But he was 19 and bored. At first, the walk was almost pleasant. The snow had stopped falling. Everything was covered in a thick white layer. Streetlights made the road glow. It was quiet. Too quiet. He could hear his breathing. The crunch of his boots. Nothing else. About halfway there, the road cut through a stretch with no houses. Just trees on both sides. Empty lots. During the day, it was unremarkable. That night, With the snow, it felt different. That was when it hit him. How alone he was. Then he saw headlights, far ahead, coming toward him. He stopped walking, watched them approach. It was a snowplow, moving slowly. Then, without warning, it swerved sharply to the right, as if the driver had lost control or tried to avoid something. The lights cut across the road and vanished into the trees. There was a muffled crunch, then silence. His first thought was that someone had crashed, so he ran toward where the lights disappeared. The snow was deep. He moved slowly, but all he could think about was someone being hurt. It took him a few minutes to reach the spot. He followed the tire tracks and found it. A snowplow, its front end crushed against a tree. Headlights still on, engine still running. He ran to the driver's side, preparing himself to help someone out. He looked inside. The seat was empty. He froze. He thought maybe the driver had been thrown, but the windshield wasn't shattered. He checked the passenger side. Empty. He opened the driver's door. Nothing. It took a moment to realize the truth. The plow was completely empty. There was nowhere anyone could have been. He stood there in the snow, staring at the running engine, the lights, the silence. Something felt deeply wrong. There were no footprints, none leading away. Whoever had been driving had simply vanished. A feeling hit him suddenly. Not a thought, a warning. He needed to leave, immediately. He backed away from the plow, turned, started walking back. That's when he heard it. A voice. A man yelling for help. Every part of him wanted to turn around. That had been the point. But something inside him was screaming to keep moving. He ran. As he got farther away, the voice shouted again. Closer. Impossibly close. No one could move that fast through snow like that. He didn't turn around. He ran the rest of the way. When the door finally opened, he must have looked unhinged. He tried to explain. Someone called the police. While waiting, he replayed everything. Again and again. When the police arrived, they said something he couldn't understand. They hadn't found any tire tracks. Anywhere. They searched the entire road. There was no sign a plow had ever been there. One of them accused him of making it up. He argued. He begged. Then they left. The next morning, after the roads were cleared, he went home. He's thought about that night many times since. Every time, he reaches the same conclusion. Whatever he saw, it wasn't something meant to be explained. And the idea that it was all in his head terrifies him just as much. The recordings do not end here. Additional material related to this case was recovered. It has been archived separately.